Hey guys, welcome to New Frontier. It's been forever. I'm not even going to look at the date from the last one. I'm just going to assume it's been
It's like
a
December
week, right?
2019. Oh yeah, no, it was last
damn,
week.
why'd you have to give?
No, you're right. It was December last week, and if we're talking about all the unreleased episodes, there was at least one last year that
exactly.
has not made it to the light of day.
Jeez. What are we here? Is it for something special, right? Or are we just here to talk about random crap,
I mean, we know roughly like two topics that we want to talk about, but we're gonna meander.
No, of
right?
course.
Obviously,
of course.
we are.
It's interesting because we're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And no matter what topic we talk about, DC,
Marvel,
Harry
the
Potter, even or something.
Mummy.
Literally, yes, anything. We will end the pod on Star Wars. It just comes back to it.
It does.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this.
Mm-hmm.
Will we end on a different one, or will it just go on forever because it's Star Wars?
Can't break the loop.
No, can't break the loop.
There will be no spark that lights the fire of ending the podcast.
I'm happy about that, even if I don't like the way you said that.
I'm sorry.
So, Boba Fett.
The Book of Boba Fett.
If you are someone who has never seen Star Wars, and watched Boba Fett, do you think it would hurt not knowing anything about Boba Fett from the original movies?
Right. I mean, if anything, you'll get a better cohesive story if you don't have any sort of baggage associated with like your expectation of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
It's either from Attack of the Clones where he's like a little kid chump, or in, I guess that's Return of the Jedi, where he goes out like a chump, but looks really cool while doing it.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. You get a character in Boba Fett, and the character is internally consistent, and it's just, a debate on whether that character matches up with how he's been shown previously. So, exactly. I mean, I think you could just jump right in. You'll be confused about literally everything else. Mm-hmm. But Boba Fett himself, maybe.
Yeah. Like, I'd say, if I remember correctly, it's like the first 3 episodes, you could probably not know anything about Boba Fett and be fine.
Yeah.
Or any Star Wars. But after that, it starts including a lot of other Star Wars stuff that we'll talk about. But it was really kind of confusing why it was in Boba.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of big universe stuff in the Boba episodes. So, yeah. Boba from the original trilogy and, prequel trilogy, I suppose, too. Since you didn't really see his face as Boba,
right.
it's I could see why Disney was like, oh, this will be easy, because they kept the guy, which is great, but it was still like, oh, we don't have to live up to what he looked like in like the 80s,
right? So
but they didn't really keep his personality from that.
No,
because they'd already given it to Mando.
They did. Mando was really the true successor, and I think that's really my key takeaway.
Yeah.
Because, like, watching the episodes, I guess that's maybe a spoiler, but watching the episodes that Boba Fett was in, and then, immediately seeing Mando after that, I'm like, this is more in line with how I actually picture Boba Fett acting.
It's interesting because, like, I hadn't thought about this, but the first 3 episodes, right, I think that's what they are, they have present time and backstory time. Some episodes are more one or the other, showing Boba getting out of the Sarlacc pit and being with Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
And then they split to modern time with him and Fennec working to take over Jabba's palace and things like that. We'll get into all that stuff. But so they go back and forth between those things until by the end of episode 3, we are caught up entirely, if I remember correctly, on both of those lining up.
Yeah.
And then once they line up, we get a Mandalorian episode, which makes no sense really. But, it's like, okay, we got enough for 3 episodes. What do we do?
Yeah.
So then we got a couple Mando episodes.
Yeah. This should have been like a mini series. Because it started getting like drawn out. And the stakes for the show, like the purpose of the show or the goal or Boba Fett's like entire arc wasn't clear until, basically it turned into the Mandalorian show.
Yep. If you're new to this podcast, a warning, we talk about spoilers all the time.
Yeah.
We're going to give you an advance warning, though. This is all spoiler stuff.
Right. An advance warning after we've already mentioned that. I guess there's a few characters that we haven't mentioned yet. But
so we haven't talked about the whole thing. Don't worry.
Yeah. But that was the spoiler warning?
Yes, now is the spoiler warning.
Okay, so
I should have said it earlier.
It's fine.
Whatever.
It's fine. We're a little rusty at this. Since our last episode was, what'd you say, last week?
Ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Time passes, So, like you said, we don't get the purpose of the show for quite a while. I would argue we don't get Boba Fett's purpose in this show or his life until the last 10 minutes of the entire show. Right. Where literally it goes from every episode him saying, I'm going to take care of the people in Tatooine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, live a better life and not harass people all the time. I'm not that guy anymore. He switches immensely from the Boba in the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of this, while you, along with other characters, are asking, why Boba? Why do you care about this town?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Because you've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end, he's like, I think I'm ready to leave this place. And I'm like, what the hell? So
I'm not sure, like, people bowing at me.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's literally,
people are bowing at him, and he's got his arms hurt. He's like, I don't know if this is for me, man.
Yep, what a great arc. I mean, survives the desert with the Tusken Raiders, becomes a ruler of Tatooine, and is like, I'm good.
I'm struggling really hard to understand, like, the timeline of the show. Like, how long was he in the Sarlacc pit? How long is he with the Tuskens? And how long did the events in the quote-unquote modern day take place?
Correct.
Because piecing this together with the end of Return of the Jedi and what's going on in Mandalorian, like, season 2 is very difficult.
Yep. I think the easiest is knowing that... you're right, because I was about to say...
Did he spend, like, a long time in the Sarlacc
pit,
or, like,
a
long time with the Tuskens?
The show shows us that he, after the Sarlacc pit, and with the Tuskens, he eventually finds Fennec Shand in the desert.
Yeah.
And helps her.
Yeah.
And that is from season 2 of Mandalorian, where we've seen her with him already after he helped her.
When we saw Fennec in season 1, she hadn't been injured yet, right? Was it her injury in, like, season 1 or season 2?
Season 2, where Mando almost killed her, right, or something?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't piece that together when we saw Fennec. I just saw her lying on the ground. I'm like, ha!
So this show was like, let's make it really hard to understand what today's date is. It's just like, there's so much of that.
I mean, that's the thing with The Mandalorian as well. I'm like, how far post-Empire is this? Because it's hard to tell.
Yep. Now we have Luke to kind of tell us, I guess.
We do have Luke to kind of tell us, but, I mean, we still don't know, like, enough to be...
No.
Definitively how far is this, and oh god, what and basically, what's Skeevy Sheevy up to?
No.
Is he still building his ships? This is when he's building all his Exegol ships?
Or is Palpatine busy banging someone? Get Rey out there, I mean,
oh no.
I mean, you got to remember the facts,
Yeah.
And that's the truth, though, because, like, with this show, you're like, oh, there's literally an episode where it's like 30 minutes of it is Luke training Grogu.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love this, but also I hate it because you're not changing what happened in those movies.
Can't.
So Luke's still a dick in the future.
Yeah.
It's
always in the back of my mind. Anytime I get too excited and start enjoying it too much, I'm just like picturing Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, man, I can't do this.
A lot of people assumed that Grogu would go with Mando. I assume that because I'm like, how are they going to do it? Because they set it up so that he is always with the Grogu, he has to be there for season 3.
Gotcha.
And instead of making them deal with that in season 3, they've dealt with it here.
Yeah.
And I think I think the reason it was going to be that also is because, he'd be dead, right?
Grogu?
He would have been killed by Kylo and all the people.
Oh, well, I believe there was a line in either Force Awakens or Last Jedi where Luke says that Kylo took his best students with him.
Okay.
And the assumption was, like, those become the Knights of Ren, but then that got retconned where the Knights of Ren are already a cult. So there was a slim possibility at some point that, Grogu gets taken by Kylo Ren.
So you and I just also watched after Boba the Solo movie, which we're not jumping ahead to that right now, but it's just interesting that we talked about, like, maybe Solo should have his own show. Now I'm remembering all this stuff that the stupid sequel movies promised that we never got. I was like, give us Knights of Ren, give us more Kylo, You don't have to just keep going back to the original trilogy.
A cult around Darth Vader is one of the most interesting things you can have. But did anything material come from that?
No. You gotta go to the casino planet.
Casino planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeez. Let's talk about a casino that was better than that casino.
Yeah.
The one with the Twi'lek woman.
Ooh, yes. The Twi'lek men.
No,
there was that huge buff, either green or blue man.
So she was. So the reason I said that is because she's the owner. The buff Twi'lek is an employee.
Right. Well, there were two. There was a hot Twi'lek woman and a hot Twi'lek man, and they polished the helmets. Yes. No innuendo.
I don't know. Yeah, right. I don't know what the plural of Twi'lek is. Is it just Twi'lek? Like the Twi'lek people?
We'll have to tweet George Lucas.
We will.
We'll tweet Rian Johnson, actually, because he's very active on Twitter.
This show, I like how we jump around to everything, and I blame myself for that. How would you like to approach this? Would you like to describe the events or just talk about it as a discussion about the whole thing in general?
I kind of like going freeform because if anybody's listening to this, they've likely seen the show, and I don't think they would need like a play-by-play.
Yeah, correct.
You know, they're here for the witty banter, and our unique perspective.
Yes.
As
geniuses.
Geniuses, subject matter experts for Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've spent the time watching and reading through all the Star Wars stuff, so you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll complain about it, so you don't have to waste the brain cells complaining.
It's true. Let us waste our brain cells for you.
We're already doing it for free, you know?
Sometimes we just turn a microphone on while we do it.
It makes you feel better about it.
Yeah.
So I guess then, you know, I had pros about it and cons. I guess I'll say one of my cons was definitely there were like 3 different types of alien for the most part consistently. It was like the Pikes, the Twi'leks, and Jawas kind of really.
Yeah, we had Jawas and we had some Trandoshans too.
Yeah, Trandoshans. Yeah, and we had some, and we did have the Tusken Raiders.
Yeah,
you know,
the Tuskens.
But in like normal scenes with the city and stuff, there weren't Tuskens or anything.
But like we also never saw anything new. There were no new aliens introduced that I can think of.
No. Yeah, the robots were the same.
We saw pit droids. We saw the taxi guy who was in Attack of the Clones.
Yep.
There wasn't anything new. I guess we saw laser shields.
Yeah.
But the Gungans had those in Phantom Menace, so never mind.
Yep.
What was new in this?
I mean, you're right, because even when Mando's there, really, the only thing maybe is Luke that's new.
Yeah.
But I mean, even it's an old character. So like, I get what you're saying. It's like really nothing except for maybe Yoda's lightsaber. Because people said they didn't know where that was from.
Yeah.
Because they said he lost it during the fight with Palpatine.
I probably he did. He fell. He lost his cloak. He probably lost it. But that's another story for a different time.
Of course.
A great. What's the quote? A great story for a different time or something. What does Maz Kanata say?
Sure.
Except for now we're actually kind of getting decent stories.
And Maz Kanata's like also 100-something years old. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She likes that Wookiee.
Yes. You know what? I get it. Interspecies stuff. It's Star Wars. I did not need crazy mechanic lady talking about banging Jawas.
No.
That was unnecessary.
No. To my knowledge, I've never gone digging on like the Wikipedia to find out the anatomy of Jawas, but just learning that Jawas are furry is not. It's not something I needed, and it's not something I expected, and I think that's the point, but...
It's like, okay, the moment she said that, I looked at them, and I noticed that there was fur on there, and I was like, well, see, I've seen so many Jawas, and I love Jawas, and I didn't know that till you ruined that for me.
Yeah.
You pointed that out, lady. Also, I know that they stoop low enough to bang you, I mean, I just thought, I'm not interested,
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I think there's way more pro-Jawa stuff in this than that negative stuff about Jawas. The Jawas whacking Boba on the head. I mean,
bonking him, stealing his armor. They had the big skull mounted on their sandcrawler.
Being able to get any part, anywhere. There's a lot of great stuff with the Jawas.
Because they basically just stole parts from a ship that was parked, right? That's what happened with the one Mando requested.
Yep. The Jawas are great.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought the Jawa.
Yeah.
Tuskens were great.
Good representation. Yeah, the Tuskens were.
Yep.
That's probably like the newest cultural thing that got added to Star Wars was we got to see, Tuskens who weren't, savages, kidnapping and enslaving, although they did kind of kidnap and enslave Boba for a little bit. We moved past that.
I mean, he was in a white onesie.
Yeah.
Passed out in the desert. I mean, that seems like a freebie, if I'm being honest.
It would be imprudent and unwise to not enslave.
Yes. And who's to say that they didn't tie him up because they're like, oh, we don't know what kind of guy he is, We're not gonna, test
any man you find all alone in the desert, just like, maybe not trust him too much.
Yeah, especially in a onesie.
And especially in a onesie.
I assume that's
a white onesie.
Yes, a white onesie.
some connotations to being dressed in all white, and
Oh, there is?
I'm talking about the KKK.
I know, I'm just trying to get you to say it. Jeez. You know, I bet you there's a KKK in Star Wars.
Totally. I mean, the Empire was xenophobic. That's why, like, there were never any aliens enlisted.
Yep. There's a episode, shooting way back, of Angel, spin-off of Buffy, where demons are being hunted because they're not pure blood. And I was like, wait a second, demon impure blood? What? And there were demon Nazis with demon Nazi uniforms, and I was like, what is this? Like, I get the allegory, but also what?
Yeah.
So, you know what? There was a lot of Nazis in The Force Awakens. That was very imagery intense on that.
Yeah. It was. I think it was a little bit too subtle.
It was a little too subtle. Yeah. Especially with Hux, that good guy.
He was a spy, as it turns out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which everyone saw coming because it was so well written.
It was destined.
It was
in many ways.
I apologize for veering us way off course from Boba.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. I don't
want to think about it.
Yeah.
Quick.
So we talked a bit about the Tuskens, but did you like all of the training and their gaffy sticks?
Yes.
And the spirit journey.
Yes. So without tooting my own horn for no reason, after watching all the backstory stuff, I was like, I'm curious to see if you just cut out all the dialogue of his and just made it more like a silent journey, if it would work better. And I already like the Tusken stuff more than the modern day city stuff they did.
100%.
But just seeing it all flow together in one piece, I was like, they really should have focused more on that, or like ended after that. Like, I'm just not a gigantic fan of him trying to be the nice guy in charge of a city, like, because that's just not at all what he's like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was very jarring to see him, and I'll continue tooting your horn.
Thank
you. We'll move past that. But the edit that you put together, that was just all of the Tusken scenes and all of Boba's dialogue removed, did actually start to feel more like the Boba Fett character that we saw.
Yeah.
Because I think he only had like 4 lines in all of the original trilogy, which is basically only an Empire Strikes Back. Technically, he was in A New Hope. He was seen, he was filmed, and then it was deleted scene that got added back in, blah, 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 blah. I don't think he said anything in Jedi, but, just very, very quiet, very cold. And when he's not, running around talking and being nice to people, he actually does seem to fill out the role a lot more.
Yeah.
And this is something else that we said while we were watching it, of like the story of like Boba Fett surviving from the Sarlacc pit, getting adopted by the Tuskens, and like adopting their ways and incorporating it into his like Mandalorian-esque lifestyle is really cool.
Oh, it was.
And would have made for like a fantastic graphic novel.
Yep.
But just the filming and all of the dialogue that they slapped onto him was. And challenging.
I have the perfect title for that graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
The Book of Boba Fett.
Ooh.
See?
Wow.
You don't even have to change the name.
My goodness.
Because I don't remember seeing any books in the show.
No. He wrote on that bowling thing.
Yeah, he wrote on. Overall, besides the bowling.
Yep.
What are some pros that you have for? Let's just talk about the pre-Mando episodes.
Pre-Mando episodes.
Yes, yeah. Besides the Tusken stuff, what did you like about these?
So I did, apart from the Tuskens?
We gotta try, man.
Okay. I really liked, there were some costumes that were good, some that were bad, but the droid. The way that they showed the butler droid in Jabba's palace, because that was very clearly a puppet on wires.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah, because he had a hollow chest and all that. It just made it more cool, like more real almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very Star Wars looking droid, and it moved, like an old classic Star Wars looking droid.
The way he talked was great.
Yeah. He was a non-annoying, protocol droid, which is like, hey, cool.
Didn't know that could happen. Thanks, C-3PO. Yeah, no, you're right. That was a cool get-up. The Major Domo's outfit was not terrible.
Could have been worse.
I still don't like that character, but you're supposed to not like him.
Yeah.
There are certain characters that I don't like, and you shouldn't not like them, but you know what I mean? So, like, with him, it's like he did his purpose, I guess, he was the
sort of
annoying, bumbling fool.
Squirmy, corrupt type of city official who's a spineless coward, as it turns out.
Yes.
Driving around high.
Yes, definitely driving around high. That's a danger to society. I also liked... there was a couple times he did this, and I just loved it because it really helped solidify his character. Was not just being perceived as a jerk or annoying. It solidified it. It was like where Fennec is like, you leaving here without us fucking you up is your gift, and he's like, huh? he's like, you know what? I need to leave.
Our tribute to you is you staying alive.
Yes.
But like, here's the question that I have: would Fennec and Boba have actually killed anyone?
No.
Because I don't think they would have.
No.
They threw somebody...
Well, Fennec might have.
Fennec.
But yeah.
Yeah, because Fennec is more Boba Fett than Boba Fett in the modern time.
Yes, in the modern time,
In the modern time.
No, it's... What's interesting about the Boba book or whatever is that there's so many things that felt like different first drafts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we got corruption in the city. We got a gang war over drugs. You getting a Rancor out of nowhere from Danny Trejo. I mean, it's like there's so many random stuff. Like, once again, it doesn't completely ruin it. It's not like a garbage show. It's just very confused.
Yeah, it needed a lot more refinements.
Yes.
It needed... Because we don't know Boba's motivation until either episode 3 or whatever, or really once all the spy stuff starts kicking in, which is when everything else starts happening. But it's like, what's his entire motivation? I think he said it a couple times. He's like, I've worked for bad people and I don't want to do that anymore. It's like we never get that impression. Clearly, I mean, we don't get enough time with him in the original movies. But like, I think it would have been better if we got to see more of Boba's life.
Yes.
And if we saw either flashbacks to bad jobs that he worked, or just got more detail on why he was trying to get out. Because maybe, spending a bunch of time in Sarlacc acid, softens you up mentally, but we didn't see any sort of transition and growth. We just saw him in seemingly a new stage of life without any context.
Yes. I mean, it's once again, because there's no timeline to how long certain events were or when they happened. We don't know how long he was in the Sarlacc pit, but ignoring how old the actor looks, knowing that he was in the Sarlacc pit, and right before that, and right before he's with the Tuskens, let's say it was maybe a month. Right before that, he was like working for Jabba the Hutt, like taking down Han Solo and Luke and all this insane stuff.
Working with the Empire too.
Yeah. So to go from that and to like wake up. He doesn't even know the Empire's gone or anything, right? I mean...
Yeah, no.
Literally...
what does he know?
Yeah, it's like literally, right? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So, it's like he gets immediately put into slavery almost, or he's trapped with the Tuskens. And, it's like, okay, I mean, yes, he's in an environment now with the Tuskens that he can't really be Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Because none of that transfers over to that.
Right.
But I don't know, it's...
That almost would have been a better arc, as if he knew that the Empire was dissolved and that, like, the Republic would come after him if he continued, being Boba Fett and being a bounty hunter. So he's like, okay, I'll just consolidate power and hole up here. And Tatooine is famously a place, allegedly, that the Republic or the Empire has very little interest in. Like, that's what we're told. It never happens because Tatooine is galactically important, blah, blah, blah.
It was weird because, like I said, there's so many jump arounds of, like, what the plot should have been. And it's like, the way he and Fennec end up at Jabba's palace and take over it was so almost like an afterthought, really. What seemed like, even with the characters,
Like in Mandalorian, at the end of Mandalorian Season 2, when they just do take over Jabba's palace, it's like, where did this come from? What was the build-up? Like, we didn't even get to see any of that.
No, it was just like, all right, he's in charge now, and he wants to be nice, I was like, okay, I mean, if anything, I would have loved more talk, and then he's like, oh, wait a second, now that Jabba's dead, and the Empire's dissolved, Bib Fortuna took over, and he's like, what if we could take over this? And he's thinking about it prospectively from the idea that his family of Tuskens is dead, and he doesn't want that to happen again, and he's trying to build up stuff.
Right.
I mean, that seems...
Like, that's I think, what they were trying to do, but they... And, maybe it's a good thing they didn't spell it out and hit us on the head with it, but, you just have to make that jump.
Yeah.
And...
They jumped I think it's like okay, if you literally had maybe another scene here,
Mm-hmm.
you know, between him and Fennec, you know, talking about that before it happens, that would help a lot, you know. But because he talks too much about things that no one cares about.
Yeah, like the tributes.
Yeah,
like,
the tributes.
I don't care about the tributes.
They're not. I was like, yeah, there's so many things that are like, oh, where's your litter? You know, why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? You know, I'm like, no. Talk about why you're doing what you're doing. Like, why are you here, Boba?
Yeah, we don't get character development. We get like exposition about the way things are supposed to work with the new Dionysus or whatever. Dionysus.
Yeah.
Die something.
Yeah.
Like we get that they're supposed to be paraded around on litters because that's what the Hutts did, and they rule through fear. But Boba still kind of wants to rule through fear, but he's not going to actually hurt anybody, and he's going to be nice to people who price gouge on water.
Yep.
It's like it's just really hard to tell. Like what is his goal? Like maintain status quo? Because he didn't do like any Tusken outreach. I thought he would like. Try to integrate with Tuskens, or at least like stop people from persecuting Tuskens. But once that tribe is dead, we see nothing. No other Tuskens. No nothing.
Yep. It really. I think what happened was it's like, okay, Mando's over. We got time. We need to make more money. And so they just rushed the Boba show. I'm not saying I wanted a Boba show ever, but if we were going to get one, they definitely should have given it more time than they did with this one, because there's just so many gaps in it. Where really they even turned the character of Boba into someone completely different, so much so that the actor playing him reportedly actually he said this to like news anchors and stuff, that I don't want to say these lines because my character wouldn't say this stuff, you know? And I'm like, when you have the scene of him choking a droid and saying, I'm Boba Fett to it when no one else is in the room, I'm like,
that's so embarrassing.
That's like, no, he wouldn't do that. He survived a Sarlacc pit. Is he going to hold a little droid up and say, I'm Boba Fett?
he's very insecure after his ordeal with the Sarlacc. Yes, that's what it is, yes. Yeah. I think he ought to be very insecure about how often he got beat up.
Oh, yeah.
By the people with just the laser shields, and with the Wookiee and those biker people. Didn't they kind of rough him up too?
Yep, they did.
Like he was not a badass in his own show. Not often.
No.
He got beat up a lot.
He is lucky that at the end of his show, it was him just pretty much saving the day.
Yeah.
Like, because it got close at the end there. Like you were even saying that Fennec was going to do it, or Baby Yoda was going to do it. Yeah. You know. And they all kind of had their moments, but it was nice that, you know, Boba was the one to pull the Rancor out of nowhere and use it.
Yeah. I wonder if his affinity for animals came from the Tuskens, like running around on the Banthas, or because they made the reference, Danny Trejo did, of, you know, these things are hard to ride or whatever. And he's like, I've ridden bigger. If they're referencing, like, the Star Wars Christmas special.
I think they are. Because also, you have to remember that... He hit that dog creature, the Tusken dog creature on the head, and then he pet it as it knocked it out. And I was like, odd choice, you know. From my perspective is like, I have never seen him with another animal, so I don't know why he was nice like that. But you know, I mean, I was like, maybe in the prequels when all those animal monsters were running around, but I was like, no, I don't think that would have helped.
Not really. No, that would have been traumatic.
Yeah, very much
possibly.
So. Very much. So yeah, it's interesting how it's like his new character trait is he's good with animals, which I don't hate. Yeah. It just was always like, huh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's a fairly recent thing to Star Wars. Rebels did it a lot, where Ezra had a very special connection with animals, and he was able to like tame them and sort of vibe with them. But having Boba do that is a little odd. Like, they had to establish it so that we could get the admittedly very awesome Rancor stuff.
That was great.
But, you know, it did seem sort of out of character for him to be, like, doting over the Rancor as a pet.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, a utilitarian type of, this thing is going to serve me well. Because he was like, I love this thing.
He was petting it and being like, who's a good, you know, Rancor? Yeah. Oh, how you doing? I was like, oh. You really like that, you know? Which, once again, I don't have a problem with that. It's just also like, that's Boba doing that, you know?
Yeah. It's jarring.
Because I was trying to think, like you said, anytime in the past, even pre-Disney, when animals were, like, treated that way, like maybe in the prequel during that scene in the arena. I feel like that happened once.
Anakin tamed the thing that he rode on. He approached it with his hand out, so you could be like, oh,
was it like the tiger cat thing, right?
There was the thing with the rhino. With the multiple horns.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan rides that lizard on Kashyyyk.
Yep.
So it's like we've seen Jedi and animals do things together, but like Boba.
Didn't Force Unleashed 2 or 1? I can't remember. I think it was 2. The Rancor, right? Where there's a big fight with the Rancor?
There's a couple fights in 1. The Felucians were riding Rancors, and then...
There's one where he's in the arena.
Yeah. That's the Goron?
Oh, okay. Because he's huge. So I was like, that's not...
Thing,
okay.
The huge thing. And that thing, that one wasn't friendly.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Would have loved to see Baby Yoda tame that one.
Oh, yeah. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda, who I think everyone will call him that for eternity.
Yeah.
I hated Baby Yoda at the beginning of Mando, the first episode of Mando. I was like, no, you tricked us, Disney.
It's like, oh, you made something cute. You want me to like this now.
Yep, I know how this is. You did this with BB-8, and I did not fall for BB-8, you know? I still want to kick him like a soccer ball, you know? And then, as the Mando show goes on, I'm like, I think this fucking little idiot is getting to me.
Yeah.
And now, every time he's on screen, I'm like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, I'm falling for it. But I think it's because we saw Mando fall for it, so it's how can you not if cool, cold-hardened Mando is fawning over him? It's like, you can't. You just can't.
The greatest things was Baby Yoda, Grogu, jumping up on him to hug him. And I was like, oh.
That was sweet.
Because he just learned how to jump.
Yeah, there were some good tender moments. All of the tender moments happened with people that weren't Boba Fett.
Yes, literally. Or Fennec. I mean, literally anyone from the first episode, pretty much. Yeah. None of that stuff, no. I just fucking realized we lost 2 amazing characters that had been around for a long time. Pig Boys.
Oh, the Gamorreans.
They had been around since before Jabba the Hutt.
Wow.
And they just were given such an unceremonious death.
It's like 4 people walked him off a cliff.
Yes, and not only did that happen, Boba didn't even mention it. No one was like, oh, we lost the pigs today. Nothing.
And those were like, that was his first crew.
Yes.
The first people that joined him.
Yes.
Wow.
He had more respect for the idiot hipsters than he did those awesome Gamorreans. Like, jeez.
I did notice that we've avoided talking about some specific things we don't like.
Yeah. So I will say, I at first didn't like the Gamorreans, but the more I thought about them, and the fact that they're, from the good times.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, they don't look terrible. I mean, you do look at the old footage and you're like, well, they look different, but they don't look terrible.
Yeah.
I liked that. But go ahead. What's something you didn't like?
Well, there was a particular episode, and I'm forgetting how it all starts, but we eventually come across... is it the job that... what's his face? Or what's her face? I don't know. I'm getting to the kids. Those cyberpunk kids.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember how all that started.
Because the guy from Barry.
It was Fuchs.
Yep, Fuchs. Yeah.
Fuchs.
Random civilian NPC character comes to Boba and is like, hey, these brats are fucking with me.
Yeah.
You need to help me.
Yeah.
So
they're augmented or whatever.
They're augmented. Yeah. They're the cool kids.
They're edgy, slice and dice.
So did we see that stuff with them before we saw Fennec get fixed by the cyber things?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Okay, so it wasn't all lined up yet at that point. Okay, so yeah, cyber kids. What do you think about them?
I think if they weren't in Star Wars, I'd be more okay with it. But everything we've seen of like human augmentation in Star Wars is very ugly. It's very gritty, except for like the robot prosthesis, which is seamless. So to have people running around who are...
bragging about it.
And very modern. I think the worst part was how clean they looked.
Yes.
It's Tatooine.
No.
Everything is supposed to look like trash.
Oh, you're right. It's you look at the original trilogy, and even some of the prequels, it's like, unless you're the Empire, you're not clean cut, really.
Yeah. And even the Empire was still grimy.
Yep. Now you got these hipsters who like are the cleanest shaven, look like they just walked out of the shower. They all look attractive, fashion style. I'm like, what is this? Maybe on Coruscant, I'd be like, I get it.
On Coruscant, put him somewhere else.
But on Tatooine, a group of attractive hipsters with really ugly speeder bikes. you can't even describe it. Like it's like Vespa, but like
big cabbed Vespas that are
yep.
very brightly colored and very polished and reflective.
Yep, like 50s like Corvette, but a Vespa in Star Wars. And as bad as that sounds,
all
that's
over
what it
the
is.
place.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not like them. I think that was like the low point of the show of like if this is all the show does and it never gets better, I'm not gonna watch it every week. I'll catch up on it maybe next year.
I mean, one of my most favorite moments of my entire life was Boba bringing an unconscious woman to a illegal surgery place and saying, fix her, and then EDM music blasting as the guy like uses his fancy chainsaw hand to like
Louis over here.
I was like, what the hell is this? Like, ignoring the fact that she's knocked out and doesn't know what's happening. I don't like any of the EDM. None of that. I was like, what vibe is this? I've never felt this vibe. Like, even in the Death Stick scene, the vibe was different than this.
It was still grimy. It was still seedy, but it was too clean.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
And the only people getting augmentations are youth.
Yeah.
It's
just
youth. All the youth. It's like getting the foot that extends out.
Well, and the one guy, I think one of the other things that like very subconsciously, he just looked like Cyborg. He had the thing over his eye, and I'm like, I've seen that. Doom Patrol did it even better.
You remember what they said, right?
No.
Like, I think it was either Boba or Fennec was looking in that direction. And he's like, oh, sorry for staring, Yeah. And he's like, oh, no, he doesn't even say anything. And I think like,
keep an eye on it or something.
Yeah.
Somebody said
and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, it's all right to stare, He's like, I put a lot of money. I'm proud of this. I was like, what?
You live on Tatooine.
Like,
you're not criminal, so you don't have money. That's the point of Tatooine.
Yes. Man, it's like Vader was like an outcast who was like a 90% cybernetic. Do you guys like him? Or do you look up to him? Because
jeez. Are you the Knights of Ren?
Yeah. Oof, I'm disappointed then. Very disappointed.
I kind of liked seeing Cobb Vanth again, because that to me that's Tatooine. And I thought that was a cool spin on Tatooine of like, things are terrible, but we're actually going to work together and stuff.
So, I like it and I hate it also, because you get him, he shows up, he's got some cool scenes.
Yeah.
His deputy gets shot to death. He gets shot maybe to death, and you don't find out for a couple episodes, actually the end credits scene of the whole show, that he's in the Bacta tank.
About to get augmented.
Yeah, he's probably going to get... Oh, yeah, that's right. The guy's there. Oh, my God.
Back.
The augmented guy. So it's like, I was like, oh, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm kind of sad because of that. Not that they showed us that, but yeah, I am. Because it's really like, oh, that means it's probably important that he's still alive.
Yeah.
Which means probably more Tatooine. And besides Obi-Wan Kenobi, I thought we were done with Tatooine.
Yeah, we really, as a Star Wars,
Star
Wars, we have to move on from Tatooine.
It's like, give me Hoth. I'll take Hoth.
I'll take Hoth.
I'll
take Crate.
Yes, I'd prefer Coruscant. I really would.
Absolutely.
I know why that's not going to happen.
But it'd be very expensive. But I'd go back to that Halo planet.
Yep.
That Halo planet, I think, was the coolest thing I have seen since Disney took over Star Wars. I'm like, that's really cool.
Yep.
I mean, it's straight out of Halo. It's like they took the ring of Halo and put Coruscant on it, but I loved it. It was cool.
They say if you want to say who stole what, we got treasure planet. So, until we get to the Mando stuff, there were a lot of things that my uncle, who grew up with Star Wars and all that stuff, he stopped watching at episode 3 because he said that was enough for him and he couldn't handle any more of it. So he got really excited when I told him how good the rest of them were. And he watched all those and said they were way better than the first 3 episodes. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot that we could trash in these first 3 episodes.
There's a fair bit.
I mean, besides the fact that there's like 3 species of aliens at most, in Tatooine, or that everyone looks just like a human or humanoid creature.
Yep.
And there's not many people to add to that. So it's like the city that once was vastly populated with a bunch of people now seems really empty and more like it was filmed on a set.
Yeah.
It's not always that way, but almost all the modern stuff felt that way because the Tuscan stuff couldn't feel that way because it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's a little tribe, little tribe, middle of nowhere.
But I was like, oh well, that's a big set, and there's just not that many people in it, So, so how do you feel about that?
And something that we talked about even just with the sequels, but everything just feels so empty.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot happening or a lot going on. And
Yeah.
Tatooine really did feel dead. I mean, you know, the inside of the casino, there were people there. Like, that's the busiest we ever saw anything was inside, like, an establishment. But there's not people just, you know, doing stuff, walking around, living.
I felt that, you know, once again, you could say, William, you're nuts for this, but I felt like there not enough things were dark. And I'm not just saying the vibe, which I agree also was that, but, like, you go in the casino and I was like, oh, wow, I can see everything in
Very
here.
brightly lit.
I don't think I've been to several casinos in real life, and they were never that brightly lit. Every casino in movies, never that brightly lit.
Yeah.
But
except Canto Bight.
Well, except Canto Bight, yes, which we don't talk about. So it's like, oh, all right, everyone's having a great time. Everyone looks literally legit. Like, in this casino, people looked like normal people, right? They didn't look like scumbags. They didn't look like the people at the cantina. They just looked like decent people at a gambling institution. Yeah. Nothing seemed shady about it. And I was like...
Yeah, it seemed like an honest institution, which is like, that's the antithesis of Tatooine.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. It's like, yeah, they're paying Boba off, but I mean, for what though, really? I was like, you're such on up and up. I mean, like, yeah, there was really, the shady part of Tatooine seemed to be gone. Yeah. Which was so weird. Well, oh well. I mean,
we had the Pikes.
Yeah.
But that's like very organized, crimey, whereas...
They're all throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. But, like, it just felt like a whole bunch of outlaws used to live on Tatooine. Yep. Like, just a whole bunch of rough characters, and now it's just, like, crime families. Yep. And crime families doing crime stuff instead of, like, people fleeing and hiding out there because they're bad people. Yep. Yep.
Even at the end, when, like, it's like, oh, all the people who live here turned on you. I'm like, still doesn't look like a lot of people.
Yeah, it was really hard to... Did the city actually like him? Because the city turned on him and then turned back?
Yes, that's what it was. Because, like, literally, it was like, oh, if you're a human character, you still like him. But if there's, like, 3 different alien species, like the dog people, and then...
Trandoshans.
And another one I can't remember. But it was like those 3 species just seemed to hate Boba. Yeah. And I was like, oh... Okay, they're dead now, I think. And, you know, it's kind of fucked up that it goes with Cobb Vance's town where they're like, no aliens ever, you know? So maybe that's what Tatooine's going to be, a supremacist planet? I mean...
You know, what's really interesting, we never saw any, like, slave trade either. It was very prominent in the prequels, was the slave trade on Tatooine. It's like, everybody kind of looks like they chose to be on Tatooine.
Yep. Yep, it's like even
Amy Sedaris' character is like, I'm born and bred here and I'm never leaving.
Yep,
like, why?
Yep. No, it's like, even though I don't love Rey's whole arc, at least she wanted to get off the desert planet, right? I mean, you have all these people who are just like, it's cool here. Yeah. I'm like, obviously, biker kids. I mean,
everything's cool for you. You seem to have access to a shower somewhere.
Yes, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just it felt out of touch with like what Tatooine was supposed to be.
Exactly.
The whole setting was a little off.
The place, now we can jump to Mando. The ring planet with Mando felt more like Tatooine and the stuff that happened there, or it should happen on Tatooine, than it was happening there.
Yeah,
so
we saw shady underbelly stuff.
Yep.
And how cool is that in Star Wars? It's
the
coolest.
It's almost like we've wanted it for a while, and they just don't show us. You know, we're obviously going to finish the Mando stuff, but I just thought about something. In Rogue One and in Solo, we got densely populated planets. Yes. But we didn't get that in the sequel trilogy. So it wasn't even like they just didn't do it at all in their movies. They just chose not to do it in the sequel trilogy, and I don't get that.
I don't either.
I don't, because it wasn't like they had the money, because they obviously did. I mean,
all the money.
Yes. So I just don't get that.
Maybe they used it to pay Harrison Ford. Like, right? I don't know. Couldn't afford the extras. Like the only time we saw a populated planet, like a population center, was the Hosnian system, which just got blown up.
Yep. You're like, oh, look, people. We see it, Oh, and then all those ships show up, and you're like, oh, I guess there's people out there.
There's still people in the galaxy. But even then, it's like, is this
it?
Is this all of the galaxy?
Yep.
I hate that movie so much.
It's like, what do you fight for? There's nothing out there.
Yeah.
I guess that's why this show made me more sad overall, because I was like, stop going back to that. You know, show us that people exist here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the Great Depression wiped out 3/4 of the universe. I mean, you know, jeez.
Everything that they showed, everything that I think the sequels didn't show anything, but everything that the shows have shown about the prequel era is fantastic.
Yep.
So Mando's flashbacks to the super battle droids, Grogu's flashback to the temple getting assaulted, that time period still looks like the coolest.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that we don't get that is very, very sad.
Because it's interesting to think about it like this, because it's like in the Empire Strikes Back, you know, and Return of the Jedi, and the original trilogy, New Hope. Oof, I would have been bad if I didn't say that one.
Yikes.
In those movies, you don't see the nicely populated city because it's not really necessary. You know, it's like you're Luke, you're coming up from that planet, you're taking down the Empire. You know, in the prequels, they show you the densely populated places.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, why are we not going back to that again? You know, why does every planet have to be so empty?
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. So it's like with the prequels, they had the technology on their side to make almost everything look futuristic.
Yeah.
You know, the ships, the homes, everything. And then you go regress and go to Mando and you go to Boba, and I'm like, why though? Like, there's so much technology, but you show every planet like it's a farm planet. You know, it's like a desert planet. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, just show, why? Just show us something with the city.
People. That's why I love the ring planets. Like this, people live here.
Yep.
There are buildings.
Yep.
This is like a big, cool space station type thing. Like, we don't see much of the people, but you can tell that they live there.
Yep.
It's cool.
Yeah, I don't get it, Disney. Why do you hate big populations?
I mean, even in Mandalorian, we saw like Imperial training facilities, like that team up episode with Bill Burr.
Yep.
Bill Burr, like even that center where just all the stormtroopers are training at is more expansive than anything the sequels gave us. More expansive than anything Boba gave us, except for the Mandalorian stuff. Which was just, Mandalorian season 2.5.
If Mando wasn't there, it would have been Tatooine the entire time. And we got a new planet with Luke, right? Which looked...
It looked...
like Asia, kind of?
It looks like it was Yavin 4 again.
Yavin 4? Okay.
It's not that, because... Well, actually, I have no idea where he built his temple, but they were building the temple.
Yeah.
That's what those little crab robots were doing, and that's the temple that gets burned. And so I'm sitting there like, I know what's going to happen to this.
Yep.
And your optimism, Luke, is very sad. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I hate to see you go through this journey where you just turn into a bitter old man.
Yes.
It's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt.
All roads lead to Skeevy Sheevy and the Rise of Skywalker.
And Luke throwing the lightsaber. Because that's what... is awesome, right?
Gotta subvert them expectations right out the window.
So, what'd you think of Luke's mini-sode?
Mildly mixed thoughts. Like, obviously it's great to see, the beginnings of him trying to train Jedi, but sometimes I felt like he was too hard on Grogu, and sometimes he was, like, too soft. It was weird to find a middle ground. And I don't know if you were supposed to think that he was doing the right thing. Yeah. Because Grogu, even though he's like 50-something years old, he's still a wee little baby. Yeah. And so having him do that level of training and like Luke getting upset that he's not meditating is like, are your expectations correct, Luke? Or are you just like, this is my only pupil, I gotta get it right. Gotta give him everything right now. Yep. And even with the whole ultimatum he gives him, I'm like, rude. That's insane, bro. Yeah. Like, yeah. I forget where I read it, but like, Luke would have hated that decision. Oh yeah. Because he basically had to get asked that same thing by Yoda, of like, you can stay here and complete your training, or you can go try to save your friends at Cloud City, and everyone's still probably going to die. Yep. Like, old Luke was all about, my personal attachments with my friends are what's going to get me through. And, like, he cared. And so for him to just immediately turn around and be like, hey, little baby child, your attachment to the person who saved you and has raised you for this last, however long season 1, season 2 last, that's dangerous for you, and you need to commit fully to the Jedi. It's like very hypocritical, very fast.
And because this is like the first time we've gotten that close to the Return of the Jedi, Luke.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know. There's a lot of questions that have not been answered. I'm going to say I know, even though I don't. I know these shows aren't meant to tell us about Luke's life.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the important part, I guess, what they're going for. But it's like, where's Han and Leia? Why are you alone on this planet? Yeah. Is Grogu the only reason you're alone on that planet? Or would you just be building the temple alone if Grogu wasn't there?
Right. Because and there's still like a year at least or whatever since the Empire fell to when Mandalorian takes place. So why wasn't he building the temple beforehand? Like maybe he was involved in like the beginnings of the New Republic and then decided to go off, but we'll never get that story. They haven't written that book or that comic or made that movie yet.
Yeah. Well, and the reason is because they know that there's a potential for them to make even more money when they do that.
Yeah.
I think this is the cynical part of me. I think the Luke in the Boba Fett episode is like a preview of what they're going to try to do with him. Because this was not even physical Mark Hamill, and it was not the voice of Mark Hamill either. So it's like, hey, if he passes away, we still got Luke,
right?
And which is
I think
scary.
the reception, I think this was another backdoor pilot, sort of like Boba's episodes where if this is well received enough, and it has been, that it's very likely that we'll either get Luke in his own show or he'll pop up in like the Ahsoka show or stuff. Yeah. I do want to talk about Ahsoka though.
Yeah, go for it.
It's good to see Ahsoka. She's, you get shot in the Star Wars fandom if you say you don't like her anymore. She is a good character.
I don't like her.
Oh boy, you
I'll be honest. From all the Clone Wars episodes I remember watching as a child, and up to this point and things I've seen, not my fan. I really like her. Don't really like her.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a bad person.
Yeah.
Just not the vibe I got with. Especially because she liked Stinky. I think that was a big part.
Right.
You guys can say whatever you want about me and Ahsoka, but I was there. I saw that shitty Clone Wars movie in theaters. In theaters.
Ooh, man.
All right?
I didn't even see it in theaters.
That tells you right there. Yeah. I mean, Rada the Huttlet.
Yeah.
I don't care about the twins. Where's Rada the Huttlet?
Bring Rada back. Like that would have been Book of Boba Fett is him adopting Rada. That would have been great.
That'd be great.
She's really good in Rebels. Like that's the only reason. To me, that fully redeemed her because she did get a really good arc in Clone Wars where she became mature. But seeing her in Rebels was good. Yeah. But what I'm frustrated with is we didn't see Luke and Ahsoka meet for the first time because they both have very important and very different connections with Anakin Skywalker.
Oh yeah.
And to miss that conversation and to miss them like talk about their experience and to miss Ahsoka hear from Luke that Vader turned back to Anakin Skywalker in the end, that would have been a very powerful moment that we have not yet seen. Not that we won't ever see it. Yeah. But it felt weird to see them together without an introduction.
Because what they've done by showing us this way, like this, is they're saying either A, you're not going to get that, or B, you're going to get it, and it's going to be really confusing for you to piece the timeline together. Yeah. Because if we're going to see that in the Ahsoka show, then that's like, once again, a weirdo timeline. Like, these shows just make it so confusing to follow the timeline.
It's odd. And her thing in Mandalorian Season 2 when she shows up is she's looking for Thrawn, which is like a deeper connection to Star Wars Rebels. Because Thrawn and Ezra are way out in the middle of nowhere space. So it's like, I don't know what her purpose is in Star Wars anymore. She, like Cad Bane, and like, I forgot all the other characters from Clone Wars that just kind of seem to keep popping up. She pops up because she hasn't died yet. And wow, I feel really bad saying that. But like, they have to jump through hoops to explain why these characters aren't in the original movies.
Yes.
And how they still fit into the narrative.
It's like, Grogu, not mentioned once.
Yeah. Somehow escaped the Jedi Temple, though.
So I was trying to find an article, could not do it, but it was talking about the Ahsoka show, where they cast someone that's going to be a Grand Admiral, but it's not going to be Thrawn.
Weird.
And they mentioned the name, and I feel bad that I can't remember it, but it was someone I hadn't heard of before. I think it might have started with a G. But they said he was a Thrawn's assistant or like one of Thrawn's right hand people. So yeah. Yeah. Well, I was like, all right. Well, I mean, yeah, sure. The fact that they're not making Thrawn a regular, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like maybe that's Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But then you have to bring Ezra back, and like I don't know.
I mean,
there's just so many.
Why don't you bring Thrawn in a movie? I mean, why don't you make a movie about them digging themselves out of the Empire's terrible government system? I mean, the prequels talked about government too much. In politics too much. That doesn't mean you can't talk about it. That just means don't, have 20 minutes of them sitting around talking about politics.
It means balance it out.
Yes.
There's got to be, as the Last Jedi taught us, there's got to be balance and intention. That's honestly the only part I like, unironically, about The Last Jedi. Is the way it talks about the light side and the dark side and the balance between them. Like, that's good. But we didn't get that in anything, I guess.
Nope, of course not.
Yeah. But it was cool to see, Mando and Luke. I guess Mando and Luke didn't interact, but Mando going back. I think seeing the other survivors of Death Watch, which is his clan.
Yeah.
And one of them just really wants him dead is really fun. Because like he's trying to rejoin, but that guy, he's just gonna come back and be like, "I challenge you again.
Yep.
I want the Darksaber."
Yep. Poor Mando. I don't think I ever disliked him as a character, but his character is really consistently growing, So every time I see him, I'm like, yeah, good for Mando. Yeah. You know what? This is great.
It is.
And, it was nice to see that even though it was in a random Boba episode. That was apparently a whole Mando episode.
Yeah. This is the first time they've said the thing about the Darksaber of, like, it's heavier to use. Like, he couldn't swing it by the end. Which I don't know if it contradicts the way it's shown. I think it kind of does. Nobody else previously in Clone Wars or Rebels had any difficulty swinging the Darksaber, but everyone who did was, trained. I'm interested in that like lore aspect.
He's very insecure. Yeah, I think so. I think that factors into it. So, random question: the lady in charge of that faction.
Yeah.
The one who makes the armor for them and stuff. She said something about a radical Mandalorian. Was she talking about the lady that he got the sword from?
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, is that her?
So that's where the history gets really odd. The last time we saw the Darksaber held by a character before it just kind of disappears was in Star Wars Rebels. Like the ending of it, Sabine is wielding the dark. She's the Mandalorian girl.
In the Mando episode?
No, in Rebels.
Okay, so who was that had in the Mando episode?
In the Mando episode, I don't know. So that's the thing. It disappears between when Sabine gets it and then when Moff Gideon gets it. But I guess maybe Sabine and Ahsoka went off together, didn't they? I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. But what happens to Mandalore and how Gideon gets the saber is very confusing.
Yeah.
Because I think they raid Mandalore yet again.
Yeah.
And destroy it, and that's how Gideon gets it. Or hang on. The radical that the Mandalorian lady was probably talking about was when Satine was the head of Mandalore and her ways were all peaceful. And Death Watch was like, oh, that's kind of bullshit, kind of trash. So I think radical in the sense that she wasn't a weird fascist fanatic of we have to kill everyone who's not us except the foundlings. So I think she's referencing Satine, which is Obi-Wan's girlfriend. Yeah. Was past tense. I'm sorry, she died.
That's rest in peace for sure.
Yep, rip in peace.
You shall not bang anyone as a Jedi. Excuse me, I must go bang someone as a Jedi. And I'm like, got it, buddy.
Yeah.
So, Baby Yoda, is it Yaddle and Yoda's baby, you think?
That's a question, Or is there just, another planet? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe in Star Wars Eclipse where we see younger Yoda, he'll talk about, where he's from.
Yeah.
Because to my knowledge, that is still never explained, either in old canon or new canon, is like, where did Yoda come from?
Yeah.
And why is Yaddle sometimes here and not in any of the other movies besides Phantom Menace?
So just so you know, I looked up Yaddle, and it says it's the same species as Yoda.
Right. But nobody knows that species.
Well...
Or they just don't.
Yeah, that's great. Yaddle, and this is on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yaddle, a force-sensitive female being of the same species as Grandmaster Yoda. Oh, right. That's so helpful.
Very helpful.
They did say that she married someone at one point.
Ooh.
And they were both Jedi.
Ooh.
And I'm trying to see if they banged, and popped out a kid.
Well, I don't know if Wikipedia is gonna have that. But
you never know.
Where does
okay, when I was younger, I found a Transformers wiki, and it was like the official one at the time, and it must have been run by the most immature people of all time. Because it would have pictures of Optimus Prime, and it would be like, look at that chonky ass, as a description for the picture. And I was like, but that's Optimus, and it's a normal picture of Optimus from the show, or like one of RC the female, and it's like, I'd bang her, and I'm like. Yeah, it's not relevant though. But it's in the official description.
Wow. Mods have too much power. That's fascinating. I thought it was odd that he had to melt down the spear.
Yes,
like when
I didn't like that.
When lady was like, you gotta melt it down because it's been used against our people before, and we only make things that are for defense. Which I don't know. They love their weapons, so having. I guess it's like you don't want something that can kill you, so sure, why not? But I feel like there should still be some leftover Beskar, because that spear was huge and it melted down into little tiny tiny chainmail.
Yeah, no, I did not particularly. Yeah,
no,
I don't know if I've ever liked that group, but they're just jerks. It seems
they are.
And they're like, "You took your helmet off," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean." Fuck off. Yeah. It gets hot under there. I mean, jeez. I loved his Naboo fighter. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long he'll keep it. I hope he keeps it a while. Because I just love that ship. I've loved it since the prequels.
But since all roads leads to the rise of Skywalker, we know that there is a Razor Crest in the final fight.
Yeah.
So maybe like somebody else.
80-year-old Mando.
Gosh.
Jeez.
But yeah, the Naboo Starfighter was cool. It's like I wasn't upset that it was a prequel era thing, and the way they talked about it, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because
they told me stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like they were like, it's handmade, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And the hyperdrive thing was cool.
Yeah, it was handmade hyperdrive. For the Queen, whole bunch of other cool random stuff. But it was nice to see it again, and it didn't feel like a crammed-in reference like Cobb Vanth writing a speeder was, or the pod racer.
Yeah. So, what'd you think about the amazing Republic, amazing rebels? We got to see them. We got to see a couple.
We got to see some of the Rangers of the New Republic. With a suspiciously absent Cara Dune.
Yep.
I think she was supposed to be there. Yeah. I think if she hadn't been, quote unquote, canceled. Then she would have been in the X-wing and would have let Mando go.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
I mean, because it felt weird that it happened, and it's like one of those things that if it did have the scene like you're talking about it, and then they lost her as a part of it, just scrap the scene because it could have shown him flying around, and then he flies back to the planet. You didn't need that interaction because it was weird.
It came out of nowhere. Served little because I don't remember. I thought. He being Mando, I thought Mando and the New Republic ended on good terms.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like they were going to, look up his record and there was still, unresolved beef or something. And that's not what I remember.
No.
So I don't know what the point of it was.
No. It was, and also, I know they're good guys, but the way they acted a lot more Empire-like than Rebellion-like. Yeah. I'm not saying that's... what they're all like. I'm just like, why is that the vibe they're trying to give us?
I thought they ended on good terms.
Yep.
It's just it seems like weirdly regressive.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to see more of not the Rangers of the New Republic, but just the New Republic in general. I'm curious about it.
Well, we were gonna get much sooner the X-wing movie with Patty Jenkins, but I believe that's potentially been shelved or pushed back.
Do we know what era that was supposed to be set in?
I'm pretty sure the Rebellion era.
Okay, so not post-Empire.
Let me look. Let me Google it. Yeah, say stuff about Patty Jenkins.
So apparently, like, wasn't her father some pilot or something?
He was a naval
officer.
Yep.
So
yep.
she said she's got like a connection to the militaristic aspects. And honestly, if we got another movie that was like Rogue One but more centered on like dogfighting from a mostly very very competent director, like yeah, sign me up. And even if it's still, you know, in the era of original trilogy and not trying to show us new things and what the galaxy's doing, like, yeah, fine. I'd really like it to be set in... was it Rogue Squadron? Was that what they called it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so probably still Galactic Civil War era. I don't know. I want to see more in the post-Empire and, like, prequel era. Prequel too. I guess we're getting that with Acolyte eventually, but you know, what's the galaxy doing?
So the title for the movie is Rogue Squadron. At least that's what it was at the time.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like, because somebody's gonna ask, you know, is this a sequel to Rogue One?
Of course not.
Know.
Oh well,
they're all basically dead, but like Rogue Squadron lives on.
Yeah.
When's that Andor show coming out? Is that like this year? Because Kenobi's like in May, I think.
Okay,
we've seen nothing about it.
It's March. Yeah, that's the official day. No, May. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I wish it was March. It's May 25th, I think.
Not even May 4th.
No. That's people were really upset about that.
That's weird.
So they said that it was delayed because of stuff she was working on, but now she dropped out of Cleopatra, which she was making.
I don't know.
To focus on Wonder Woman 3 and Rogue Squadron.
Okay.
So my bet is the main focus is probably going to be Wonder Woman 3 for her.
Probably.
And then go to that.
Yeah.
Hey, if that means you get a better film because we have to wait, then I guess I'm okay with it.
Is that the only Star Wars movie that's like...
Nope. There are several others.
Movies?
Yes.
No, we've got a bunch of shows.
We're getting a movie from Taika Waititi, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It says he was officially announced in February 2020 to direct a Star Wars film from a screenplay he co-wrote with Christy Wilson Cairns. Yeah, I know this was a while ago, so you gotta take that, because Disney with their upcoming movie stuff is...
Yeah, they love announcing stuff.
Now, who knows what this means, but there are 2 untitled films scheduled for 2025 and 2027.
What?
Yes.
That's so far away.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. I mean, I guess it's 2022, but like, goodness.
So who knows when the Patty Jenkins one will be?
Okay.
I'm just curious to see the writer. He wrote Ricky Gervais stuff.
Interesting.
Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
Oh no.
Love and Monsters.
No
Monster Trucks.
Oh no.
And Rogue Squadron.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe the X-Wings are alive.
You know, so do you remember... Oh my god, please no. Do you remember...
they're going rogue as a squadron.
Oh, it's like Cars, but with X-Wings.
Yeah.
Oh my god, no. Oh man. That hurt me so much I forgot what I was going to say. Jeez.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, it wasn't important. I guess we should just be happy that Star Wars is not as bad off as it looked at the beginning of Boba Fett.
Yeah. There's still, I guess, ideas out there, and you know, maybe when they actually have a budget, and Bryce Dallas Howard directing, you know, those were the good ones.
Yep.
You know, we didn't talk about the finale. That's something we haven't gotten to yet.
So, finale. Cad Bane, who felt like he was added because everyone realized the Pikes were boring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Cad Bane stuff was good. It's like there's no way for anyone to care about him unless they've read online stuff about him or watched the Clone Wars. And I'm going to say the majority of people have done neither of those.
No.
So, I mean, he's cool to look at, and he's cool and creepy.
Yeah.
And you know he's got a past, but
he's cooler in all of the other stuff. It's just, I think he's probably the easiest to translate to live action, but he's still pretty hard to translate to live action.
It's like, especially if you don't, you know, give in, because they really didn't talk about him.
Yeah.
Like even after he showed up, he wasn't like, oh, that Cad, we've
Yeah,
worked
no,
with
yeah,
none of
you
that.
just carry on as if you know him.
Yep.
And even with my understanding of like current Star Wars canon, there's allusions to him knowing Boba Fett, and I'm trying desperately to remember if they had any interactions inside of Clone Wars, because there's a lot of bounty hunter stuff. Boba Fett popped up a couple times, and Cad Bane popped up a couple times, but I don't remember explicit interactions with them together.
Yeah.
There was I showed you the cut scene where they or the unfinished episode where they had their shootout. But like, yeah, for anybody who doesn't know and just is sort of a casual movie watcher and now show watcher, he's a bad guy who shows up and everybody knows who he is, but nobody talks about, and then he just dies.
Yep.
He's a really good shot though,
Yeah.
and he just dies.
Well, it's like if they did that with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show,
Mm-hmm.
and Darth Maul came in and the same thing happened, it would not be as hard to understand what that was. You know, with Cad Bane, it was so. I mean, once again, I kind of know who he is. You know, I've seen some Clone Wars episodes, but it was still like this would have been really helpful to have some background on this guy, or at least anything. I mean, because he just shows up.
It would have been good to see him more.
Yep. And for a character that's like 100-something years old and has been around for all this stuff, for him to just die on the last episode of the Boba Fett show, I'm like, it's just weird. I mean,
it would have been nice to see him in more stuff, because you could tell that he didn't really care what he was doing. Like, he wasn't loyal to the Pikes because he told Boba like their secret of like, Boba, it was actually the Pikes that killed your Tusken friends. Like, Cad Bane is a very cool, interesting character, and like now we don't get to see. I mean, we may, but we won't see him in future things, in things that take place past Boba Fett. Like, he's dynamic. It would have been nice to see him as more than just an enforcer who shows up with the same shtick and shoot a couple people.
It's great because, like you said, literally he shows up and everyone's like, I don't know who this is. Oh, he's kind of cool. Then like, it's almost, he's not as cool as Darth Maul, but it's almost like Darth Maul's thing. Where everyone's like, oh, what was the point of showing a cool guy and he's dead and we're not going to get any more of him? You know? I know you can watch the animated show to find more, but it's like, not everyone likes animation. Which is unfortunate.
Because it gets good.
It's good stuff.
It's good. You have to suffer through the initial movie first with Stinky and
that was bad.
Ahsoka at her actual worst, but it
was bad stuff.
There's one last character from Clone Wars that I'm really surprised we haven't seen pop up yet, and it's slightly possible he'll show up in the Obi-Wan show, and it's the pirate Hondo.
Yeah.
Hondo. I think he'd be fun. Like, I'm kind of surprised he didn't show up here as somebody who's like trying to pay tribute to Boba Fett, because like it could have worked, and he's a Weequay, and so we've seen some of them, even in Boba Fett. So it's like his makeup would have been easier to do
because they already had the base.
They already had the base, and it's easier. It would have been easier to do than Cad Bane. I'm glad we saw him though. I'm just kind of surprised that he died. I guess he had to kill somebody. Who's he gonna kill?
I mean, he didn't have to kill him. He could have shot him.
Right.
And wounded him, because I don't know. I'm not saying I just hated that part. I could give or take of that happening. But it was more so, it's like Boba had a cathartic moment when he thought he killed the biker gang that he thought was responsible for the Tuskens. He lost that when he was revealed to him about that, and then it almost is like him killing Cad Bane makes up for him. Now he's got to kill the people finally,
and he doesn't. And
Cad Bane had nothing to do with it.
Right. That made me start thinking, like, who are the actual bad guys? It's basically just like the Pikes.
Yep, the Pikes.
Just a faceless, crime syndicate that's pushing drugs. Like, I think you're right. They had to bring in somebody for Boba Fett to kill.
Because the Pikes literally did nothing. Like, I mean, they're not like the heavy-handed Force guys. Really, they had to call help. And so it's like, if he finally broke through their lines and like just walked up to the guy and shot him, I mean, I get it. I can see people being like, well, how was he gonna fight back? All this stuff. I don't know.
even then, like I think the Pikes are very weak villains because we never saw them do their own dirty work. Like we saw that guy just sit around in his chair and be like, they paid us for protection, and these guys paid us for protection, and we killed the Tuskens. Like they're villains who just sat in the shadows and did nothing.
Yeah.
Except they weren't treated like cool mastermind background villains, so you had to have somebody like Cad Bane to show up and do bad things that we saw on screen, shoot Cobb Vanth and blah blah blah, so that Boba could kill him and we feel some sort of catharsis.
And I would have been much happier if Cad Bane had been there the entire time.
Yeah.
Like if that was always the idea that he was the heavy-handed for them, so him shooting him would have meant more, or if he was the one that went and killed the Tuskens.
I was just thinking that.
Yep. Like they could have done stuff with that. Once again, if they had maybe waited a couple months or a year when writing this, I think they could have brought all that together.
But as we were talking about, like, the show slowly started getting ripped from Boba Fett, and it started to become, The Mandalorian, and the Baby Yoda show, and the Luke Skywalker show, and the Cad Bane show. Yep. So it was nice that nobody helped Boba Fett kill Cad Bane, and then Boba got to do the things with the Rancor.
Because the Rancor, it wasn't anybody's idea either.
No.
Literally nobody else's idea. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. I'm glad that both those things weren't like, oh, you need your assistant to come help you. Oh, the hipsters are helping. Like, no.
Fennec and the Gamorreans had to save him from countless other things. So it's like, it was good that Boba... He finally got a win of his own. In his own show. Took him to the last episode to, like, win a fight.
The way they set him up as Boba, his version of Boba, I just love even more the Rancor. He's like, he's losing. He's like, oh, I got an idea. He's like, I gotta get my dog, and he just leaves, and he shows up with his big pet dog. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's great.
That was good.
I was confused as to why the city just started shooting the Rancor out of nowhere.
It seems like you could have left the Rancor alone.
Yes.
And like everybody hide in the buildings, and he's not going to eat you.
Yep. But no, shoot the pet of the guy who saved your lives.
It took me a minute to realize, those were like the people we've been following. Like the good guys were shooting the Rancor. I thought it was like the Pikes or just the randos, but no, it was the randos we're supposed to care about. It's like did you not see him take down those big droidicas that we've never seen before?
So I get why the droid robots were there to shoot at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's because they didn't have a big bad. It's because they didn't have a big bad, and they had to put random droids that just shoot people. And I was like, it's not a villain,
Were they cool? Yes. But that's not the point.
Yeah, it's not the point. No.
They weren't built up at all.
They showed up and then were defeated.
Did the Pikes even say, we've got a weapon up our
nothing.
sleeves? No, they just show up.
Yep.
Yuck.
I was like, why'd you need Cad Bane then?
Yeah.
You got two giant murderer robots. I mean.
Yeah.
So, Boba Fett show, including the random what the hell's going on Mando episodes, 0 to 10, what do you give it?
Like 10? a 5 to a 6.
Okay, yeah. Let's say 10 is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And what would you say the worst is to put it like 0 or 1?
Okay, so we're not doing like a true...
let's say based on the current Star Wars stuff.
So based on everything in Star Wars, I think the 0 would be like Rise of Skywalker, just like weird, awful gratuitousness and fan service and a bunch of meaningless nonsense.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 or 7, like you said too.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I don't know what the chances of me watching it again are.
Yeah.
Anytime soon. Because even the Mando stuff is technically filler for what's going to happen in Mando 3.
Yeah.
So it's like. Even then, I mean, the Luke stuff was cool, but once again, you've seen it. Like, I mean, unless you just really love Luke and you want to see the stuff again.
It just puts Mando back to status quo.
Yep, that's all it did.
So weird.
Because they were like, oh, well, we would have had to explain that in like the first episode, but now...
It would have been a great first episode for season 3. I think, okay, so on the scale that we've set, I kind of would put it at like a 4 or a 5.
Okay.
Because like... the Boba stuff taking over and running Tatooine was low. Yeah. Amy Sedaris, low. As much as I like her, and Bojack is low. And then there's like the weird gratuitous references. Not as bad as like Rise of Skywalker, but just sort of the level of care and production value for things that weren't Mando just felt off.
I remember watching. There's like a few Mando episodes, like village-based ones that I didn't like with budget. You know, it was just lower budget.
Yeah.
But with Boba, it was like, oh, this looks like a TV show.
Yeah,
you know?
Boba felt cheap in a lot of places.
And then the Mando episode started, and you're like, oh my god, this is a budget. Like, why did you not give this to Boba? I mean, maybe it's because they were working on the Mando one longer, because that was supposed to be a part of season 3.
Probably, maybe.
Because I could have seen that whole Mando stuff really being the first episode of the. I mean, yeah. Oh well. I mean, it doesn't. Whatever. It's just. It's I'd settle on probably a 5.2 because it's like, once again, I like the Luke stuff, but I also hate it because it scares me what they're going to be doing with that stuff. We get like a Luke show or some crap like that. And it's if you had told me we're getting a Luke show right when Disney bought it, I'd have been like, this is fucking amazing. I want this. But now knowing what Luke's going to be, I'm like, I really don't need to see his life. You went from making him super interesting to being like, well, I know what's going to happen, and I don't like it. You literally know how he dies.
Gosh. But yeah, it's very, very middle of the road, very safe. Like, I feel like I'll probably come back to a couple Mandalorian episodes, like the ones that push the story along. But I keep forgetting details about the Boba Fett show, and we've just finished watching it. Like, we didn't even talk about him getting his ship back and shooting things, which was like kind of the highlight of the non-Tusken actual Boba Fett stuff. And it's just not going to leave an impression on me.
No, it's. I mean, I think it is funny that he could not say the name of his ship at all. He's like, there's my ship. And she's like, where's your ship? And he's like, I think my ship's over there. And it's like, oh, you got your ship back. And I'm like, okay, funny. But it's, no, you're right. There were definitely, if it hadn't been hindered, some good character moments for Boba. You know, but because of all the random crap they threw into it, it's like, well, I mean... It's like, there's a good moment of Boba in like a 40-minute episode, you know?
There's a lot of botched execution. And just Disney sanitization of a character. Because
even, and once again, we said the Tusken stuff was great, and it was. But even the Tusken stuff had problems. There was a lot of times when he would be talking to the Tuskens or like being the voice for the audience when we didn't need him to be.
There was a lot of talking down.
A lot of exposition. And it's just heavy-handed stuff. So many heavy-handed things instead of just, let the beauty of the Star Wars world show you, or, let everything show you without there being like, to fight these people, we'll need weapons and guns and stuff. I'm like, we get that. We get that,
Like Mandalorian even did that better, because one of the things that I mildly complained about was Mandalorian gave like little to no context. But compared to like how Boba Fett was handling is like I like the way that Mandalorian handled itself, and like it did a lot more environmental storytelling and not really explaining things to the audience. It worked a bit better.
This is the best way to end this. The scariest thing I've come to realize is that most of the Star Wars Visions episodes had more character development with their leads that you will never see again than the like 5+ episodes of Boba. I mean,
that's true. That is very true.
Do you think we're getting a season 2? So the way they ended it,
of Boba Fett,
the way they ended with Boba Fett, I would not be surprised if they think they're gonna maybe have one. I know it's based on them reading the reactions of people. I could see it not getting one as season 2, but I don't know.
I don't think I'd be either terribly surprised or disappointed if the show got canceled. Like, I want them to come back and prove me wrong and do something like really good with the character. Because it seems like they're even toying with the idea of like maybe he'll leave Tatooine and do something else,
which defeats the purpose of
the purpose of this entire season. It's true, but like it took Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones to give us Revenge of the Sith. So like we can work off of this and push forward.
And if they if they just went in a better direction, like if you're gonna make Boba goofy, then go with it. Make him the goofball older man. But you kept tying it into I'm Boba Fett, and stuff. I'm like, no, pick a lane, and I'll be okay with it, because you stuck with that instead of just being like, you're good now. You're didn't you gun down a bunch of people? I mean, it's like, what is it, Boba?
Yeah, and the times that he did dark things, like gunning down all.
He was into it.
Yeah.
He was into it.
Yeah, it's like, doesn't that defeat the way that you actually want to try to run Tatooine? Like, I don't know.
I wonder if he did those faces that way just because the actor himself was like, this is what he would look like. This is the guy he is. You know, he's like, I'm gonna get that across.
Yeah.
No.
A few good, this is actually Boba Fett moments. Buried under a myriad of this is Disney Boba Fett.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You know, we're gonna be doing one of these pods soon, hopefully unrelated from Star Wars. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Who knows?
But definitely about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh my goodness, we have to.
Because I am hoping that Disney would not fuck up the budget of that show.
Yeah.
Because it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Plus it's Ewan McGregor. So it's like, not trying to be rude to the cast of this, but like, and Hayden Christensen. So I mean, like, I'm really hoping
there's greater expectations.
Yes. I don't know how many people were like, "Oh, Boba's gonna be the shit." Like, I cannot wait for the Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Like, once again, not saying it was crap or not worth it, but like with Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's like if they treat it like they treated this, no bueno.
Yeah.
So,
Star Wars is done if they do that.
Oh man, that's bad. Yeah, you're right. I'm just so worried that it's gonna be that, or like just a different Jedi shows up and he has to like train them, and like the focus is off of him as like the character. And I'm just worried about that.
Because I don't know, for whatever reason, when they announced the cast list, I'm like, there's a lot more characters than I was expecting. It's like regulars.
Yep.
So I really hope they don't bring in another Jedi.
No, I hope so too.
I don't know what I want to do with the show. I don't right now, and again, prove me wrong, please do. I don't want a Vader Obi-Wan rematch.
I don't know, me either, because literally, I mean, yes, it will technically, as they've said, been 10 years since the prequels, and so that means maybe 8 years, maybe 10, before he fights Darth Vader again.
Yeah.
And when he fights him again in A New Hope, Darth Vader says, I sense a presence, I haven't sensed in a long time, right? Yeah. And so 10 years could be a long time. Yeah. I mean, that could. Now, 20 or 18 would be much more, but, And
then Vader had the line of, like, when you left me, I was but a learner, but now I am a master. Yeah, it's like, that's going to be harder to make that line make sense.
I've heard that Hayden Christensen has been cast in Ahsoka also, which...
I'm good with that.
Yeah, because cool that we know is just going to be hallucination stuff or force visions and things, I think, or remembering the past.
Yeah.
I'm way more okay with that. I hope that's what they're doing with Obi-Wan Kenobi because, like you said, I don't need to see Vader and him on screen together.
Yeah.
Unless you say, like, prove me wrong. Bring them all. I know you already did that in Rebels, right?
Yeah.
But just recreate it with...
I'll see it again.
Yeah, I'll see it again.
You can not have Ezra be there, too. It'd be very easy to just have Maul show up.
Do you know how many people would freak out if that scene happened in this? Because you know how many people have no idea that happened.
Yeah.
You know? Like, no. It'd be great.
Whew. There's a lot riding on this.
All right, Obi. I mean, because not to be rude, I'm not super interested in the Ahsoka show. Like, I mean, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's Star Wars, man.
Yeah.
I'm interested in Andor just because, like, what the hell? You know? What is that going to be?
And the side the side of the rebellion that we did briefly get to see at the very beginning, like, I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Like a very a non-optimistic cutthroat rebellion of, like, we'll sacrifice our own just to survive. Yeah. I'll see that.
And the Acolyte, I'm excited, but also really scared. I guess all the other ones hopefully will tell us how that will be eventually, because I think that's the farthest off out of them.
Yeah,
but the Acolyte, I'm just worried that it'll be like, edgy Sith, oh, look, the light side. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We shall see.
Well, it's been great. For us, it's been a week, It's funny because, like, we've talked so many times and hung out so many times that we've technically wasted so many podcast episodes on just talking to each other.
Yeah.
Which I don't see as a waste, but
like we didn't do Dune.
No.
We talked about doing the Suicide Squad going in, and then we saw the movie and we're like, there's nothing to talk about.
I mean, we could definitely do an episode on Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see waiting till the second Dune comes out and then talking about it all together.
That's fair.
Like,
fair.
There's great stuff. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of shitty movies coming out this year. Oh, Morbius. When is that coming out?
Oh, that's pretty soon, I think.
Yep.
Like a week or two.
I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, so Morbius, and then, we got 4 DC movies this year, at least, not including Super Pets, because I think that's
good. I hope that never happens. I know it will, but I hope it doesn't.
No, we're going to watch that.
Oh, man. We need to see Ace piss on something, I mean...
2 DC movies with Dwayne The Rock Johnson in the same year.
What the hell?
Wow.
Jeez. I'm excited because, DC's disappointed me really bad in the past.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to see what happens next.
That's true.
Star Wars, it's more just depressing.
Yeah.
With DC, it's like, let's see what happens,
Yeah, I'm less attached when DC messes up, but Star Wars, like, it hurts me on a primal level.
yeah. Because with DC and, like, Marvel stuff, it's like, that's so easy to fix for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're done in a movie, it's over with.
Yeah.
With Star Wars, you fuck it up, it's really fucked up. Yeah. Like, it's
cemented.
Yeah, it's cemented. Yeah. So, yes. Jeez. Here's to Suicide Squad 3. Rick Flag's back. Spoilers. Jeez. That's a good one.
Yeah.
You guys have a good one, and bye, I guess.
I guess.